What's up and welcome back. I know today is a stressful day for many, regardless of where you're coming from. So I figured let's kick back, let's relax, and let's not think about the election by watching Election. This is the 25th anniversary of Alexander Payne's Election, which stars Matthew Broderick, Reese Witherspoon, and Chris Klein. And it's got audio description out there in the world. And it's, yeah. So we won't think about the election by watching an election today. It's a different one. It's a different kind. It's a high school election. It's Tracy Fleck. Reese Witherspoon created an iconic character in a film that didn't really make that much money at the box office, which kind of goes to show you how iconic Tracy Fleck is, because she has to come across as instantly iconic to people who have seen her in this movie, because I've heard Tracy Fleck mentioned, and I'm like, Election didn't make like 100 million at the box office, you know? Of all of her characters, you hear it mentioned almost as much as like Elle Woods, but definitely more than Melanie from Sweet Home Alabama. So people are still pushing Tracy Fleck quotes and stuff like that. So again, I think it speaks to the volume of work that Reese Witherspoon put in here into an early Alexander Payne film. Now, for me, it's not my favorite Alexander Payne film. I kind of saw this the first time and didn't really care for it as somebody who was in high school. I think maybe it was because it feels like it's an adult's perspective on high school. It was very different than watching the other the onslaught of teen comedies we had this year. So from my perspective in 1999, I was getting, She's All That, Varsity Blues, Drive Me Crazy, The Wood, American Pie, horror movies. 1999 was full of just a certain type of teen film. And this one, the films that were aimed at teens, where the teens were protagonists, and the teens felt like this idyllic version of being a teen, where everybody was popular and cool and hung out, and it was like, yeah, we all have like life goals of being bros forever. That's their goal in life. Just college and sex, and we're just gonna go on and do great things, like that, like those two things. I don't have a career choice. No, I don't know. It's just, I'm thinking about the right now, man. I'm thinking about graduation. This has sort of like more, because it's largely from Matthew Broderick's perspective, it's more of an adult look at high school, and Tracy's manipulation is seen a little bit more from the adult lens and the choices that she makes, and she is a little bit more of a a nice counterbalance to Broderick than he would initially think, in terms of him just thinking he can walk over Tracy and be like, well, I'm the teacher, so I have the power. And it's like, but have you met Tracy? Because she's clearly smart and motivated and will absolutely destroy your life. So it's a very odd film for me, because I love Reese Witherspoon. I'm a big fan of Alexander Payne for the most part. Definitely he's got several films on his list that I love. He might be a problematic director. I don't know if we've decided on that. I feel like the world just kind of like hit pause on on that. But it's odd because I'm not a fan of Broderick and Klein. So rewatching this film for me is to rewatch it only for Reese Witherspoon's thing, and then to get the kind of context as an adult when you look back on it that Payne was trying to put in to Broderick's character. This is one of Broderick's better performances, and I've been somebody who doesn't really get Matthew Broderick outside of, You know, it's like, okay, so we used you as a teen actor. And I kind of look at people who didn't move on from being teen actors and didn't go on to do other things. And I'm like, why wasn't Matthew Broderick one of those people who had a hard time transitioning? Because I've never really felt compelled by him as an adult actor. Some of his best work has been him playing a really dumb version of himself on Only Murders in the Building. Like that for me was like the highlight of the Broderick career. But also in 1999, he plays Inspector Gadget, and it is the least interesting way to possibly play that role. It feels like they offered Inspector Gadget to like 20 other people, and they all said no. And they're like, God, we got to get somebody in this role. Who can we get? Just send out, I don't know, just put out invites. See if anybody will take. We'll pick the biggest name possible. I mean, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's the kind of role that you would think, ooh, Matthew Broderick is my first choice to play Inspector Gadget. Why? So here he's in Election, and it's like, okay, cool, I guess. I feel like some people are definitely would bounce back and say, no, I think he's really good here. And it's like, I just don't get Matthew Broderick. Some people don't get other actors, and that's fine. And I'm just openly admitting it. There were some people who were like, I don't get Chris Pratt. And I'm like, that's cool. I like some of his stuff, not all of it. You know, it's just, I agree with you. I'm tired of him voicing every character in the known planet. But I wouldn't write off his entire body of work. I think Star-Lord, I think he's good for that. I enjoyed Jurassic World. Not the following two. But, so there are things. So with Broderick, but I struggle to find these little tidbits of things that I like. I'm like, he was a good voice for adult Simba? It's not necessarily the best singer, but he's okay. So yeah, I really kind of struggle to find things that I like in Matthew Broderick. And here, this is one of those things where it's like, he's okay. I didn't hate him. And I can't hate on Chris Klein too much here because he's kind of playing what Chris Klein is, which is kind of an airhead, kind of a doofus. So he's that typical jock, and Chris Klein is doing his, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, probably I could do that if you, like, that's like his entire career. It's like Chris Klein was made from part of his DNA was stolen from Keanu Reeves while Keanu was making Bill and Ted's, and dropped into some sort of machine that then created Chris Klein. They're like, let's make like somebody who looks a little bit more like your typical high school quarterback, but has all the mannerisms of Keanu Reeves, and see what that plays out. And it's like, it's kind of boring, but if that's what you feel like you need from life, well, guess we have Chris Klein now. The man with zero range. So, yeah, this is a Klein performance. So, I don't really know what else to say about that. I would say if you really want to see the depths of Klein's range, his rangiest work is We Were Soldiers. That's it. That is as far as he goes into the depth of dramatic acting. He's also in that awful Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li. But we can watch this. It's Election, and you can watch about Tracy Fleck and how people try to screw around with her election. Like, she wins by one vote, and then he tries to take it away from her, and she finds a way of getting even, and there are other things that happen in and around this film. At the beginning, she's in like a relationship with a teacher, but then like her mom finds out and goes ballistic, and so that teacher flees, and so Matthew Broderick gets to slowly work on that man's wife, and which becomes a thing, and Tracy Fleck uses that, and anyway, she's good at destroying people's lives. A very nice villain that isn't really a villain, but is a villain through the eyes of our protagonist, which makes her the villain, and then Broderick is the one really who ends up doing the bad thing, and taking the election away from her. And she just turns around and gets it back. Makes him regret having changed the votes. It can have some frustrating scenes. Like, I hate when the kid is trying to bring up the fact that, like, 2 votes are missing, and the principal's, like, shutting him down. Like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Stop her now. And it's like, this is somebody who I have a feeling you probably look at as being a good student. I'm gonna guess this is probably one of those. And you're shutting him down like he's like some loser that you're constantly suspending from school every 3 days because he's got like weed in his locker. I just, there are parts of this that I don't buy. And because honestly, the kids that are close to valedictorianism can get talked to a little bit differently in high school. And I think this is one of the things that Alexander Payne misses, is the principal is like exerting some sort of like weird amount of effect even on that kid. And it's like he feels kind of like neutrally safe as a kid, and he's not even willing to like hear what he's saying. He's just like squashing it. He's like, no, I believe this all the time. And it's like, I was not even that good, and I got listened to more as a kid, and my stuff got heard more. And I'm not even from the generation where everything is a Karen now. And teachers lose every single conversation they've ever had. Election nowadays, if Alexander Payne remade it, would look completely different, because the teachers would have like zero power, and it would just be parents coming in and being like, so we've decided my daughter is going to be president, and Tina over there, her son, is going to be vice president. We've already made, this is how it's going to work, or we'll sue you. Thank you. Bye. We've been empowered by the laws of our state to be able to make these kinds of choices. By the way, we don't want any books. No books. Remove all books. Even the textbooks. No books in the school. None. Thank you. Bye. So in many ways, an election 2, where Tracy Fleck ended up becoming a teacher and is like living in like a living hell, like living nightmare, would be hilarious. That would be fun. But I just don't know if that's the kind of film that Alexander Payne wants to make. So it's just silly. I was like, what am I going to put out for election day? And I was like, how about Election? Celebrating his 25th anniversary. I've been doing some anniversary releases. I thought the audio description here was pretty good. So it's been a long time since I've seen Election. I saw it, I think this is my 3rd time. I did see it once. Oh God, I want to say probably like mid to late 2000s. It was after Sideways when I revisited Election for sure, because I was like, oh, well, I should give that another pass. Because I didn't remember hating Election. I just remember fully loving it. And so once I kind of grew up and got out of high school and got away from the teen comedies of the era, I think Election, part of the problem was it was sort of being billed in and around that same ilk of movies that we were getting. We got a lot of teen movies in 1999. And when you're in a mindset, it'd be like Yellowstone works for people, right? As a series. You can tell I like Yellowstone. But if Yellowstone was on the WB back in the day, I don't know, like following Dawson's Creek. I just don't know if people, I feel like some people would have still like been like, oh, Yellowstone is great. But I feel like a lot of other people would have been like, why is this here? This is not like anything else that's on the WB lineup. I don't, It kind of feels like that. It just feels like something else where you're like, somebody's telling you that it's part of this other thing. You don't really realize it's just using it. It just happens to be getting released in and around everything else. You know, so it would just be happening to be on the WB next to Dawson's Creek. It doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't lessen the show at all, but I was ready for something else, you know, along the lines of the other teen comedies of its period, 10 Things I Hate About You and stuff like that. So, and I just didn't get that. I got something that was made more for adults. So, now that I look back on it, I can see the brilliance in Alexander Payne, even if I question the casting of Matthew Broderick. But, he's not, there have been other roles where I've not understood his casting at all, like in Inspector Gadget. I'm just like, so I can't completely fault it, but I will say there has to be somebody who would have done this better than Broderick. But other than that, it is sort of weird to see Ferris Bueller in this role, by the way. So that's sort of the juxtaposition that is worth anything, is the fact that if you are a big Ferris Bueller fan, to see the guy who played Ferris Bueller playing this teacher sort of feels like some sort of like spiritual sequel in a way of Ferris Bueller. Sort of like what I was just suggesting, if Tracy Fleck were to end up in Election 2, working with a different set of students and having to deal with their parents and everything in 2024 with all of the ridiculous things that they can and can't do. I feel like she would question her life choices. So if you look at this as a spiritual sequel to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it's way more entertaining in that regard. If you're like, why is Matthew Broderick here? Well, watch Ferris first and then watch this and imagine, you know, that Ferris grew up one day to be a teacher and this is what he became. And then it becomes more interesting and funny. So I'm going to give Election a B+. I do like some other Alexander Payne films a little bit more than this, but I think the writing here is smart. I think Alexander Payne rarely ever falters completely. I think most of his stuff, even the stuff that people are like, that wasn't great, I think it still is like totally watchable. I don't think there's a single thing that I've of his, even though there are things I like less, there isn't anything that I'm like, no, that I've seen where I'm just like, no, don't watch that. That was terrible. So I just have preferences, and that's okay. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.